What are your thoughts on the Jets O-line? They're trying to say the Jets are a Super Bowl contender but I think that O-line has the potential to be a disaster. So let me say this. I think that anytime you have a new quarterback or newish quarterback who's coming off of destroying his Achilles, and Aaron Rodgers, and he's in New York, he's going to get hyped. He's going to get hyped up more than it probably should. I don't believe in Robert Saleh. Just to be honest with you guys, I don't believe him as a coach. I think that Aaron Rodgers is a fine quarterback, but if Aaron Rodgers was so amazing, which I do think he is amazing, but if he was just like the one missing piece for the Jets that they were missing all this entire time, and he's automatically going to have those guys in Super Bowl contention, it's like, all right, well, the guy's made one Super Bowl in his entire career. We haven't seen him really do much since, besides a couple playoff appearances, maybe a win or two here and there. Not maybe a win or two. He's definitely won in the playoffs, but it hasn't really gone deep. Hasn't really gone deep, right? It's kind of their ceiling has been that NFC Championship, I would say, at points and times. But I think Aaron Rodgers is a good quarterback. I think he's going to get more wins out of them, more wins than they had last year. And I just don't I don't believe in the paper talk. I don't believe in counting people beforehand. I think that their offensive line is an issue, but I also do wonder, is Aaron Rodgers completely healed as well? Because we saw some tape coming out of him already holding the back of his leg and missing time. And
imagine if you signed, let's say, Lyle Collins, right? Like maybe a better Lyle Collins, a little bit better. And then you relied on that at two spots on your offensive line at tackle. I feel like that's what they're doing, right? You're taking the gamble of, hey, Tyron Smith, you were really good for the Cowboys for a long time. You've dealt with injuries, but when you are healthy, you're pretty dang good. Morgan Moses, you're 33. You have been around. You've been competent. But again, 33 years old, can you stay healthy, maintaining that size? Can you stop from losing that step? Can you prevent that for one more year? And I like Elijah Vera Tucker. I don't think he's panned out to be quite the player that we thought he was going to be. And then you've got a second-year center in Joe Tippmann, which probably doesn't matter as much when you got a guy like Aaron Rodgers at center. But this is not like, oh, there's at least one like stalwart that you can point to. There's no Laramie Tunsil, no anchor, no island that you can point to say, hey, this is a reason I feel like I have confidence. It feels like you're almost waiting for the shoe to drop at 5 positions. And it comes back to like when you're blocking a run play. It only takes one person to completely blow it for the entire thing to crumble, right?
I think their O-line in general, there's just so many ranges of outcome for them. If they stay healthy on paper, like that's a pretty solid line, but the odds of that happening are slim. But it's like the odds that it does, then it's like, sure.
It's like you got a dice and you're like, hey, if I have to roll the dice one time for one player who's a chance and I have to get an odd number, right? Okay, that I feel pretty good about that, right? But then you have to do it for 3 positions, 4 positions. Now you have to roll the dice 3 or 4 times, and that's the odds.
Yeah, I mean, they got Olu on the bench too. I mean, there's just so many questions. That doesn't mean the line won't answer them per se, because there is some talent, there is some decent, history there with the line. But there's so many questions about it. And again, that doesn't mean it'll be a bad thing, but it's gonna be tough.
We have a comment from Pete Carley. I think he kind of took our positioning a little bit incorrect, if would say. He says, if Joe can come back from a torn ACL with a weak line, so can Rodgers.
I want to, go ahead.
I'll just say this. Here's one thing. But he says, if, he said what he said about Joe, Aaron Rodgers coming back. I'll say this. I think people forget to realize Aaron Rodgers has dealt with Achilles injuries for like the last couple of years. This isn't a thing that has just happened.
This is a severe one.
This is a severe one where it actually got popped. But this has been an ongoing thing for actually a while, even when he was with the Packers, where he actually missed time due to his Achilles injury on several occasions. And it's been a thing that reared its head a couple of times. So at that point, do you remember when AJ Green kept dealing with his calf strains over and over with Cincinnati? I do wonder at what point in time does it become like a thing where it's like, especially being an older player at this point in time, right? Even though he's not necessarily older as a
Well, that's the thing, right? One of those guys is 27, and the other is 40, right? That's the first difference, okay?
First large difference.
That's the giant difference there. Second of all is how you approach rehab, right? Because even doctors talked about Joe Burrow's injury with people who don't get surgery right away or don't go to rehab right away. That's where you start to risk long-term effects, long-term injury, lack of range of motion, lack of blood flow to that area. Aaron Rodgers was sprinting through the rehab, because remember there was that push. Oh, well,
maybe I can come back.
He might be able to come back from the
crazy.
ACL in December. If they can make the playoffs, Aaron Rodgers can make my fucking ass, dude. You can't come back from a torn Achilles in 3 months, in 4 months, and play football at a high level when you're already 40. Like, just people don't do that. You don't play good football on the Achilles. You can't even use your calf. You can't even use your leg.
Yeah, I mean, we had Cam Akers who tore his Achilles early in the training camp and then played again down the stretch, and he had a couple of games, but look at him now. He's toast already.
And so the long-term effects of him rushing through that rehab, I don't think he's going to come back as clean as he would have if they would have immediately said, shut it down. Don't rush things. Don't just shoot it up with a bunch of painkillers and keep trying to test it and push and push.
Enough for fun anyway.
Take your time, do it right. That would have been much more beneficial in the long term. So, like, when we're comparing those situations, I say one rehab was approached a lot more dutifully, right? One rehab was approached a lot more seriously with a long-term plan in mind. The other one was rushed and has a person who's older and, like you said, dealt with those injuries. You just don't bounce back as fast, man.